Triangle Shirtwaist Company caught on fire and many workers died due to the fact that they were not able to escape the factory. The mass panic of the workers made it difficult to get to the stairs or elevator. Many unions went on strike due to the unfair working conditions, pay, and hour. Owners of coal mines often wouldn't listen to miners' complaints. Strike seemed like the only option. Pennsylvania coal miners went on strike for 160 days, which prompted panic over the possible coal shortage, prompted presidential intervention.
Theodore Roosevelt served as the 26th President of the United States after winning the election in 1912 and was nominated by the Bull Moose Party. This party opposed the conservative ideas of the Republican Party and called for an aggressive program in social legislation. Taft served as the 27th President, and under his presidency, the Department of Labor was created. Woodrow Wilson served as the 28th President and was a leader of the Progressive Movement. He was reelected, asked for America to go to war in World War I, and was able to go to the Treaty of Versailles Conference and brought it back to the Senate. He later had a stroke.
Cities would hire experts in certain fields to run a single aspect of city government. Ida Tarbell was one of the leading muckrakers who wrote about the Standard Oil Company. Thomas Nast was a cartoonist who made political cartoons, some of which were aimed at Boss Tweed and his political machine. Lincoln Steffens was a New York reporter who wrote a series of articles in McClure's that were later published together in The Shame of the Cities. Jacob Riis published How the Other Half Lives and was composed of photographs showing people living in tenements. Florence Kelley was a social and political reformer who worked against sweatshops, and her work towards 8-hour workdays and minimum wage is widely regarded today. Margaret Sanger was an American birth control activist who popularized the birth control and opened the first birth control clinic in the U.S. Carrie Chapman Catt was a women's suffrage activist who campaigned for the 19th Amendment. Gifford Pinchot served as the first chief of the United States Forest Service from 1905 until he was fired in 1910. Booker T. Washington was an advisor to presidents of the U.S. and a dominant leader in African American communities. Ida B. Wells was an African American journalist, news editor, suffragist, and early leader in the civil rights movement. Alice Paul was an American suffragist, feminist, women's rights activist, and main leader and strategist of the 1910s campaign for the 19th Amendment, Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall. A political machine that had a series of recurring scandals. Estimated $75 to $200 million were taken from the city between 1865 and 1871. Jane Addams and Hull House provided kindergarten and daycare services for the children of working mothers, employment bureau, art galleries, library, theater, music, and art classes.
The Jungle, written by Upton Sinclair, was a book talking about the conditions in meat processing factories. This led to the passing of the Pure Food and Drug Act, as well as the Meat Inspection Act, both of which prevented the sale of misbranded meat or poisonous foods and made sure that meat products were made in sanitary conditions. How the Other Half Lives by Jacob Riis was a book composed of photographs depicting people living in tenement buildings.
Interstate Commerce Act made railroads first industry regulated by government, mainly in response to public demand. Established 5 members Interstate Commerce Commission. Elkins Act was a way to end rebates, which were made when business shipped large quantities on the railroad. Hepburn Act gave ICC power to set maximum railroad rates. Mann-Elkins Act extended powers of the ICC to telephone and telegraph companies. 16th Amendment, Congress has power to lay and collect taxes on incomes. 17th, established direct election of senators. 18th Amendment, start of Prohibition. Prohibition, manufactured, sale, transport, import, export of alcohol beverages. 19th Amendment, guarantees all women the right to vote. Underwood-Simmons Tariff, reduced average tariff rates from 40% to 25%. Federal Trade Commission Act, prevent unfair methods of competition in business. Espionage Act, made illegal for people to rely information meant to interfere with U.S. armed forces war effort to promote success of the country's enemies. Sedition Act, prohibited people from making false statement.
Standard Oil versus U.S. Supreme Court declared dissolution of the Standard Oil Company due to its violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. Northern Securities Company versus U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the Northern Securities Company was violating the Sherman Antitrust Act by controlling 3 railroads and monopolizing rail transit. Clayton Antitrust Act provides further clarification of the Sherman Antitrust Act. Standard Oil Antitrust ordered the dissolution of Standard Oil Trust. Sherman Antitrust Act passed by U.S. Congress to prohibit trusts. Northern Security Act established Theodore Roosevelt as a trust buster, first use of antitrust legislation to dismantle a monopoly. Mueller v. Oregon Case on regulation of the workplace, debating whether setting a maximum workday for women was constitutional. Lochner v. New York, ruled that a New York law setting maximum work hours for bakers was unconstitutional. Hammer v. Dagenhart. Dagenhart sued on behalf of his freedom so his 14-year-old son could work in a textile mill. Keating-Owens Act used government's ability to regulate interstate commerce to regulate child labor. Adkin v. Children's Hospital. Supreme Court ruled that minimum wage for women violated the Due Process Clause in the Fifth Amendment.